I was given one rule for my isolated mountain job. I broke it when I heard my partner screaming. "When does the fog normally come?" I asked, expecting a punchline. My trainer laughed. It was a dry, hollow, terrifying sound. "No one knows. It comes when they are hungry." I did not understand what he meant, but I agreed to the rule just to end the conversation. For the next 3 weeks, everything was completely normal. The work was incredibly boring but physically demanding. Every morning, I went into the back room to check the diesel lines. At noon, I climbed the dizzying metal stairs of the tower to scrape ice off the satellite dishes. In the evening, I walked the inside of the perimeter fence, looking for broken links or signs of animal damage. My trainer rarely spoke to me during those 3 weeks. He was deeply withdrawn. He spent hours locked in the back generator room by himself. Even over the roar of the diesel engine, I could hear a strange scraping sound echoing through the metal door. It sounded like someone dragging a sharp screwdriver across a steel plate over and over again. When I asked him what he was doing in there, he just glared at me and told me to focus on my checklists. He was always anxious. He constantly watched the tree line when we were outside. He even kept a loaded shotgun leaning against the wall next to his cot. I started to think he was suffering from extreme paranoia, a psychological break caused by the intense isolation of the job. I planned to request a transfer the moment my first month was up. A week ago, we had a false alarm. I was eating lunch at the desk when the temperature in the room suddenly dropped. My trainer leaped out of his cot, racked the shotgun, and sprinted to the main steel door, slamming the deadbolt shut. He stood with his back against the metal, breathing heavily. But no fog came. It was just a normal storm rolling over the peaks. He stayed by the door for 3 hours, gripping the gun, refusing to speak. That incident made me realize how broken he was. He was terrified of something out there. Yesterday afternoon, the routine shattered permanently. It was around 2 o'clock. The sky was entirely clear, and the sun was shining brightly over the mountains. I was on the flat roof of the bunker, sorting through a toolbox to find a specific wrench for the tower uplink. My trainer had gone outside to walk the perimeter fence. He carried his handheld two-way radio on his belt. The base station radio was turned on inside the bunker right below me. I looked down over the edge of the roof and saw him standing near the southern corner of the chain link fence, examining a section of wire. Then, the air changed. 1 second, the sky was perfectly clear. The next second, a dense, unnatural, blinding gray fog dropped over the entire mountain. It was so thick and sudden that it looked like a gray sheet being thrown over a camera lens. Instantly, the temperature plummeted so fast my breath turned to vapor, and a suffocating silence fell over the clearing. The wind just stopped. I remembered his one rule. I dropped my tools on the roof, ran to the metal roof hatch, grabbed the handle, and pulled it open. I scrambled down the internal ladder, dropping straight down the shaft into the bunker's living quarters. I hit the concrete floor and immediately slammed the roof hatch shut above me, spinning the locking wheel tight. I turned around, expecting my trainer to be sitting on his cot or standing by the desk, but the room was completely empty. I looked at the main steel access door leading outside to the clearing. It was open, so I closed it and the 3 heavy deadbolts were thrown into the locked position. Before I could even process his absence, the radio console on the desk erupted with piercing static. Then, I heard his voice. "Help!" My trainer screamed through the radio speaker. "Open the door. Oh God, please, open the door." I froze entirely. I stared at the locked door. I grabbed the radio microphone from the desk. "Where are you?" I yelled into the mic. "I am inside. The door is locked. I am right outside," he shrieked. The panic in his voice was raw, guttural, and absolutely terrifying. It sounded like a man who was experiencing unimaginable agony. "I am bleeding out. My leg is gone. It took my leg. Please, just throw the bolts and help me." I stood paralyzed. I remembered his warning from my first night. No matter what you hear outside, you do not open it. You will hear people screaming. You ignore them. But this was not a random voice in the mist. This was my partner. This was a real person, communicating with me through the company radio, and he was dying just a few feet away from me. I could hear the wet, tearing sounds of him dragging his body against the dirt outside the bunker. I could hear him sobbing. I could not just stand there in the warm, well-lit room and listen to him bleed to death in the freezing fog. I threw the rule completely out of my mind, and convinced myself the rule was meant for strangers, not for my partner. I ran to the main access door, grabbed the top deadbolt and threw it back, then grabbed the middle bolt and threw it back, and finally I unlocked the bottom bolt. I grabbed the metal handle and pulled the door open. A wall of thick, freezing gray mist poured into the bunker, rolling across the concrete floor. I could not see anything past the doorframe. "Reach out!" I screamed into the fog, squinting against the mist. "Grab my hand. I cannot see you." A hand emerged from the gray fog. It was pale, incredibly long, and covered in gray dirt. I reached out and grabbed it. The moment my fingers wrapped tightly around the wrist, every instinct in my brain screamed that